So welcome to Module 1, Session 1. Often when we see people struggling, we feel it is a compassionate response to help them. However, in this session, we are going to be considering how help in the traditional sense can sometimes be damaging and disempowering for the individual. By the end of this session, you'll be able to appreciate the disempowering nature of fixing and the empowering nature of coaching. And you'll be challenged to become a vulnerable encourager of mastery. First, we will look at what it is to be a fixer or understander. Then we'll think about the fact that we are still doing something when we're an understander or coach, just not doing for the other person. Then we'll look at what it is that we do actually do as we walk with somebody on their journey of change, before finally thinking about our own organisational context. So sometimes in coaching, this idea of empowering people is considered in this concept of being a fixer or understander. A fixer is someone who hears the person's problem and then tries to fix it for them, whereas an understander is someone who wants the other person to understand the issue for themselves so they can fix it themselves. These aren't actually just bipolar opposites, but there is a range in between, so you might actually be helping somebody practically while still being an understander. Both fixer and understander, even in their extremes, have their place, but in coaching the balance is heavily weighted towards being an understander. And here's why. When we fix a problem for someone, they don't get the opportunity to develop new knowledge and skills. They are confirmed as someone unable to solve problems, and the individual becomes more and not less dependent on you for things to go well. When we support someone to fix a problem for themselves, we build their confidence that they can make good decisions. We encourage people to become self-reliant and self-directing, and we become less needed for future issues. In essence, being a fixer or understander is often about empowerment. Are we giving away our power to empower someone else, or are we making a role for ourselves and empowering ourselves by disempowering others? So onto our question break. Give some concrete examples from your own practice of when it might be appropriate to be an understander and when fixer is most suited. So we are still doing something, just not doing for the person. Being an understander is far from a passive role. Indeed, it is a role which can be more difficult for the understander or coach, as they might feel they know the answer the person is seeking, which can lead to frustration. Further, they often must let go of control or their feeling of knowledge so the coachee can discover solutions for themselves. One of my coachees once put it like this. They had taken a picture they had painted to their counsellor. The picture was of a river, and the coachee placed themselves beside the river. The counsellor looked at the picture and asked, "What would it take for you to cross the bridge and join me over here on the other side of the river?" The coachee felt distressed at the suggestion, as they perceived the comment as summarising the counsellor's position as being better than them. As we discussed the picture in our coaching session, we talked about walking along the water together and deciding together whether crossing the bridge was a good place. When you look at this picture of the bridge, it's quite scary. Actually, to walk across and to make change is often a scary decision. And to be encouraged that you're on the other side waiting for them is nowhere near as powerful as saying, "When you're ready, I'll walk across with you." The point is, the role of the understander is to be there to equip the person to make decisions for themselves rather than to make the decision for them. We walk with rather than do for. So when someone offers you help, does it always feel helpful? What other feelings might you have? So what are we doing as we walk with? Walking with someone is about supporting them to come to their own decision in their own way and in their own time. We become a resource for the person in their self-directed solutions. This implies that we become vulnerable as we are both giving away power and opening ourselves to the individual asking us questions that we might not want to answer. The individual might seek the view of others, including possibly ours, but sharing is not about advising, rather opening doors for further exploration by the individual. Our role is to encourage the individual in the progress they are making and to help them make informed choices for which they can be accountable. We might prompt the person to look for a greater number of alternatives in coming to the solutions or interpretations. We will act in a way which gives the individual mastery over their own situation and potentially mastery over new skills and ideas which they can share with others. Now, commitment to the individual will be to the individual rather than the resolution of a specific issue which the individual may have. Our main tool learning to walk with people is that of communication. We'll return to this in the second module. However, we might also encourage the person to use techniques such as alternative solution generation, encouraging the individual to think beyond their initial answers, and cost-benefit analysis. What will be the impact of the choices for themselves and others? In doing this, you'll be engaged in hearing the individual's story, which is something we will consider in the next session. To our question break. What will be the challenges for you in not offering advice and guidance? And so on to our organisational contextualisation exercise. Using Hawkins' 5 levels of a coaching culture, what are the concrete changes that you will need to be adopting in your role to walk with rather than do for? Level 1, artifacts. What are the key components of strategy, mission and training which you need to consider? Number 2, behaviours. How can you model approaches that are based on coaching in your one-to-one and group meetings? Number 3, mindsets. How can you demonstrate a commitment to engaging people to solve problems and that better solutions are created together? Number 4, emotional ground. There's a high challenge for personal engagement and responsibility, and with that high challenge needs to come high support. How will you provide that level of support and challenge on both a practical and emotional level? And number 5, motivational routes. How will you demonstrate a commitment to lifelong learning and role model this through your dialogue and collective explorations?